My bike is a Koga World Traveller S with roll-off 14-speed gear system and Gates belt drive. Other brands are available, but I would recommend the following features. I had around 35 kilograms of gear, including this goodie bag containing my ice axe, crampons and plastic boots. This GPS unit has satellite communication and an SOS button. It also has a tracking feature so my wife can keep an eye on me. Money is useful if you're intending to buy stuff, as is a passport if you're crossing any borders. Finally, if you need any drugs or CPR, don't forget to take your GP with you.
Get your motor running, head out on the highway, looking for adventure, born to be wild.
The plan was to spend the first 4 days in La Paz acclimatizing before heading south. As luck would have it, the day after we arrived was the Dia de las Peatones, or the Day of the Pedestrians. This happens once a year and all traffic is banned from the roads.
Here we are cycling down from El Alto on what would be the equivalent of a, I don't know, M25 on a day when there are no traffic allowed. Out of the way, Roadhog!
After cycling around for a bit, we headed up to La Cumbre, about 20 kilometers north of La Paz. It's a good place for acclimatization as the mountains are accessible and relatively easy to climb. It's on the edge of the Altiplano where the infamous Death Road plunges 3,000 to 4,000 meters down to the Bolivian jungle. Working out at 5,000 meters is good for what's to follow.
143. That's not bad. You're showing good form.
There are easier and quicker ways from La Paz to Sajama, but if you're looking for that wilderness experience, cross-country is the way to go. La Paz's cable car system saves us the 350-meter climb to El Alto, where Che Guevara bids us farewell.
Tell myself I'm man, no get angry. Hey, yeah. Two Eddie cows calling them K9. Hey, but they tell me, hey man, start up the party. You put a woman in front and a man behind. I have a woman.
I'm hoping this is a friendly dog. Most of the dogs we've come across have been friendly but haven't bothered barking. This one is, well, he's a barker but he's still wagging his tail.
Was nice, the party was pumping, and everybody having a ball until the fellas started name calling.
genuine off-road experience. Interestingly, the footpaths are a lot smoother than the roads, which are covered in sand and very difficult to cycle on, to say the least. So actually this is a good alternative. It's not that deep, no more than 6 inches, or maybe 8.
"30,000 years ago, much of southwest Bolivia was covered with lakes, and when those lakes dried up, all that was left was the sand and the salt. Although there was evidence that people live or lived here, there were days on which we saw no one at all. This meant finding water was difficult, but fortunately there were rivers from which we could pump and treat fresh water for drinking. At 6,542 meters, Nevada Sajama is the highest mountain in Bolivia. It is to be our constant companion from leaving Corocoro until we arrive at the Salar de Uyuni 2 weeks later. At over 4,000 meters, this is a pretty harsh environment, and the winds blow strongly from the west. With the winds come the dust, but we're fortunate that the wind doesn't blow too hard. 5 days after leaving La Paz, we arrive at Tomarapi. This is the entrance to Sajama National Park and a day's ride from Sajama village. It's downhill most of the way, and we have good views of the twin peaks of Pomerape and Parinacota, as well as Sajama itself. There's a lot of thermal activity in the area, so we take the opportunity to stop at the hot springs. It's a lovely location, even if the hot springs turn out to be, well, not that hot. A little while later we're at Sajama village, which will be our base for the next few days. I have my eye on a couple of nearby mountains, Acatango a short distance to the south, and its more lofty neighbour Parinacota over on the border with Chile. Andy decides to stay behind to continue his quest to find the hairy armadillo, push me pull you, and other exotic creatures. I leave Sajama village at 4 and am at the bottom of the mountain by 5. The last few days have been windy, but it's cold and calm when I start my ascent. It's crampons and ice axe for the last 150 metres, but by 9:15 I'm at the top. The following day I climb Parinacota, but this time with a guide as the penitentes make the climbing conditions difficult. Penitentes are ice pinnacles carved by the wind and are very common in the Andes. It's been another early start, but by 10 o'clock I'm looking into the volcano's enormous crater. It's a bit too windy to fly the drone, so after a few summit shots, we're on our way down again. Although we're getting used to cycling at these altitudes, we're only covering about 50 kilometers a day. But as we continue our journey, we know that things will only get harder. Despite the desert conditions, there's enough water around for the llamas and alpacas to thrive. There are settlements too where we can buy basic provisions, but the roads between them are seldom better than rocks, sand and corrugated gravel.
Nice easy bit of road then.
Yep.
On the first part of the journey, I was looking at all the life. There were plants and birds and rocks and things. There was sand and hills and rain. The first thing I met was a fly with a buzz and the sky with no clouds. The heat was hot and the ground was dry, but the air was full of sound. I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert, you can't remember your name, because there ain't no one for to give you no pain. La 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 la
Looks like another fine mess you've got me into.
I did say it was a lake here.
It's a day's ride from Sala de Coipasa to the Sala de Uyuni, which, at just under 11,000 square kilometres, is the world's largest salt flat. As it's going to take us a couple of days to get across, we're hoping for a bit more luck than this fella. After a good night's sleep and some refreshments, we're ready to go. The Sala de Uyuni is 3,650 metres above sea level, and during the wet season it floods and forms a giant mirror 125 kilometres across. The surface height varies by less than a metre, and for this reason satellites use the lake to calibrate their altitude. The salt is up to 140 metres deep, and the lake as a whole contains 5% of the world's lithium. In the middle of the lake lies the island of Incahuasi. We spend the night here, although we're not alone. After finding a sheltered spot for our tent, it's photo time.
maybe not the wisest thing trying to video yourself while cycling, but does give you an idea of how bumpy this road is, which from a distance looks perfectly smooth. But anyway, I'm losing sensation in my hands and other parts of the anatomy, which I won't mention. Anyway, here we are, crossing the Great Salt Lake.
Yeehaw! This is what a tailwind and a smooth road across the Salar feels like after an hour of bumpy roads. As if to prove it, 14 miles an hour. This is great. It's still a long way to go, but this will take a lot less long at these sorts of speeds than it will the speeds we were at first thing this morning. Wouldn't you agree? There you go, it's official. It's very hard, I'd like to think it's quite hard to fall off, but it's been done.
After a day and a half cycling, we reach dry land and feast on empanadas. We've been lucky with the weather so far, but as we head south across the Laguna district towards Chile, that's all about to change. At Laguna Hedionda we have the chance to get out of the wind. The hotel is comfortable and warm-ish, but we have to provide our own hand cream. Outside there are flamingos in the lake. Each night their legs get frozen in the water, so in the morning they have to free themselves.
Cycling from the middle of nowhere to the middle of nowhere.
As the wind picks up, we're blasted with sand, and it's easy to see how these rock formations appear over time. But we're nearly at Laguna Colorada, where there's plenty of shelter. After a morning's relaxation at Laguna Colorada, our next stop was Sol de Mañana, a geothermal area at 4,900 meters and our highest campsite so far.
Very tempting to jump in and be warm for the first time in a few weeks. I refuse to make any laboratory related comments in relation to this particular boiling cauldron.
After a couple of hours in this health and safety free zone, we packed up our tent and followed the other tourists on the long descent down to Laguna Chalviri. It's then a short ride to some hot springs where we checked into the second best hotel in town. From here it's a day of headwinds and rough roads before we finally arrive at Laguna Verde. There are a few other tourists around, but we soon have the place to ourselves. It's a beautiful spot to camp in, but the wind is cold and that night the temperature drops to 15 degrees below zero.
Go, 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 go! No bother.
Heading towards the Chilean border, finally.
It's a 2,000 metre descent to San Pedro de Atacama, where we enjoy a few days' rest. This is the point at which Andy and I must say farewell, with Andy heading north and me heading across to Argentina. After a brief period of mourning and plenty of ice cream, I get back to the job of planning my onward journey. I need to get to Yuyayako, which is a 4-day ride south of San Pedro, but the Paso Sacompa is now closed. If I'm going to get to Argentina, I need to go north via Salta, and this is going to add 10 days to my trip, but there's no alternative. There's a regular bus service to Argentina, but it's busy and it takes me 3 days to get out of San Pedro. The bus is pretty full, so I have to take my bike apart and stow it in the loo at the back. But looking on the bright side, 11 hours on the bus will save me 4 days on the bike. It's a 4-hour bus journey from Salta to San Antonio de los Cobres, and then another 8 days to Yuyayako by bike. There's not a lot between San Antonio and Tola Grande, so I'll have to be self-sufficient. With 4 days of food and plenty of water, I'll be carrying over 55 kilograms of gear. The road crosses an old railway line making its way over to Chile via the Paso Sacompa, but the line's rarely used these days. The Argentinian Puna is a harsh but beautiful place. but there's enough food around if you know where to look. Three days out of San Antonio, I reach a pass where I'm greeted by a couple of Andean foxes. From here, it's downhill to Tola Grande via the salt pools of Ojos de Mar. At Tola Grande I get my first views of Yuyayako, although it'll be another 4 days and 160 miles to get to the foot of the mountain. There's not much to do here except to restock and head out. For the first couple of days there's plenty of traffic working the mines around the Salar Arizaro. I'll be crossing the Salar in a week's time to visit the Cono de Arita, a volcanic plug on the other side of the lake. The wind is a problem, so I find shelter where I can. I'll have to hope the wind drops as I only have a limited supply of biscuits. But the forecast for the next couple of days is good, as I drop my bike off at the foot of the mountain before heading up to Camp 2. I leave camp at 3 AM and follow this snow gully up to the ridge. And by 10 o'clock I'm standing on the summit I was unable to reach in 2014. If the summit book is to be believed, I'm the first person to climb this mountain in over a year. In 1999, a team of archaeologists found the mummified remains of 3 Inca children just beneath the summit, making this the highest archaeological site in the world. On the way back, I'm running out of water. But I'm in luck as Luciano, who works for a local mining company, gives me a lift and saves me a day's ride. I'm in Tola Grande just long enough to get some more food before heading out once more. After 5 days alone on Yuyayako, I'll be back on the tourist trail, heading south first to Antofagasta de la Sierra where the tarmac starts again, and then on to Belén, where I intend to spend a few days recovering.
And I'm on my way to see the Cono de Arita, which is a bit of a tourist spot. Not that you'd guess it from the lack of vehicles, but anyway, it's about 15 miles over there, and it should make some nice atmospheric shots at sunset.
The Cono de Arita is found at the southern end of the Salar de Arizaro, Argentina's second largest salt flat. This 150-metre lava cone is a popular destination for tourists, but the mountain itself has religious significance and climbing it is strictly forbidden. From here it's a windy day's ride past mines and over a pass to Antofagasta, where Santiago and his friends give me food and lodging. Fortified with wine and a good night's sleep, I'm ready for the big climb over to Antofagasta de la Sierra. But before leaving the valley we have to cross the Sala Antofagasta, where Dronio gets to spread his wings once more. It's a big climb from the Salt Lake to the pass at 4,600 metres, but I'm not too proud to hitch a lift from halfway up.
I was thinking to myself, slightly downhill, slightly wind behind, beautifully smooth surface, doing 16 miles an hour at the moment, a bit faster earlier. If cycling was always like this, they'd all be at it. Look at that. Incredibly, you know, everyone's cup of tea, it's totally barren. But there's a truck coming, incredible, just as I put the video on. There's a truck. Hey ho. Anyway, it's a beautifully smooth road after 2 months almost. 7 weeks of rough ripio and awful gravel and sand. And this is actually a convoy. It's probably got prized lithium in it or something. Whatever it is that these convoys carry. Hello. Hello. Slight inconvenience to have vehicles on my road, but otherwise, really enjoying the sun on my back. I've just reached the top of a pass, 3,950 metres or something like that, and I'm coming down the other side. It's about 5:30 in the evening. I probably should be looking for somewhere to put my tent, but it's a national park, so I'm not allowed to. But this is just beautiful downhill cycling out in the wilderness. Temperature's just right. It's just absolutely fantastic reward for what was quite a lot of effort, albeit with the tailwind getting up the pass in the first place. But it's just, you know, stunning scenery.
Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
I have one more big mountain to climb before leaving northern Argentina, but as I'm a few days behind schedule, I'm not planning on cycling the whole way. It's a short bus journey from Belen to Tinagasta where, after a quality breakfast, I get back on my bike and head up to Fiambala. There's just enough time to have empanadas, served by a lady in traditional costume and a condor, before heading off to the mountains once more. This is the region of the 6,000 metre peaks, although perhaps the 6,000 mining vehicles would be more accurate. It's a 2 to 3 hour drive from Fiambala to the Balcon de Piscis, which is a popular tourist spot. But from then on it would just be me and my bike. Monte Piscis is one of the few glaciated mountains in the area, with the standard route up the peak skirting to the right of the glacier. It's going to be a day and a half to the point where I leave my bicycle, and then 2 days to the summit from there.
So good news, bad news. The good news is that overnight it freezes and the water levels get lower. The bad news is there's ice in the water. I have to take my shoes off to cross this. Cold feet. Cold feet.
The next day I drop off my bike before heading up to Camp 1 and then to Camp 2. The clouds look ominous, but the forecast for summit day is good. Monte Piscis is the third highest mountain in South America and the second highest volcano in the world. Because of its remoteness, it only has a few summit attempts a year. As usual, Dronio is itching to get out of his bag and do some flying, but it's just too windy. As the Mini 3 Pro is only supposed to fly up to 4,000 meters, he's doing very well just to stay aloft. And while he's struggling to keep the camera steady, I'm struggling to catch him at the end of the flight. On this trip I had hoped to climb Bonete Chico, the continent's 5th highest mountain, but decided that it was too remote and too dangerous to do by myself. A day and a half later I'm back at Laguna Negra, where I get a lift to Fiambala with Elbio, Martin and Diego. This saves me a dangerous river crossing and a 2-day ride. From Fiambala it's an 800 kilometer journey south to Mendoza via Catamarca. In Mendoza I spend a few days chilling out and eating ice cream, washed down with Malbec. It's a fun and cosmopolitan city, offering all the facilities a traveller could possibly want. It's also the first place I've seen rain in 2.5 months. As it's too early in the season to tackle nearby Aconcagua, I send my boots and my crampons home. From Mendoza it's another bus ride, this time to Santiago, and then on to Puerto Montt for the next stage. The Carretera Austral, or Southern Way, is a 1,250 kilometer road in South Chile. It was built during General Pinochet's time to connect rural communities in remote Patagonia. A few sections require a ferry and around 65% of the road is paved. As well as churches, there are regular reminders as to how far you haven't gone. But there are plenty of cyclists with whom to share the experience and the occasional luxury. In Chaiten I joined forces with Tommaso from Milan. We will be cycling companions for much of the next 2 months. During the 14 days it takes us to complete the Carretera Austral, we have 9 days of sunshine and 5 days of cloud or rain. When it's sunny, we put in long days camping where we can. The scenery is just breathtaking, a combination of the Alps, Norway and New Zealand all rolled into one. But after a few nice days, the rain returns.
This is Thomas coming up the hill, trying to get the balance between sweating and staying dry with waterproofs and stuff like that. Anyway, as you can see, we've decided to go with the waterproof. It really is clean down here. Anyway, it's only one way and that's up.
The following day we're greeted with sunshine and lupins. But we're not halfway yet and there's still a long way to go.
Another one of those days where it's just a joy to be on the road. It's, although the wind is just turning into my face, but it's a westerly wind, we're heading southwest. But I don't know if you can see it, probably not, but there's lots of lupins on the road, but not just that, but there's kind of a whole carpets of lupins, particularly down by the river. But this is, you know, you got pouring with rain yesterday, completely miserable and cold today, absolutely glorious, fabulous scenery. Going down a valley, and then there's another pass, which we'll be going over later. Quite a big day today. We want to get to Kylläki, which is another, I don't know, 50 miles from here. It's just gone 12, so reasonably big day, but hey ho, of all the days to be enjoying scenery like this, it's absolutely the day. But anyway, time to sign out and catch up with Thomas. It's incredible. I haven't seen this many lupins since well, Alaska. It's fabulous. I mean, just all self-seeded, presumably. Right time of year to be here, enjoying the lupins at least, and the good weather after a few days of rain.
We take a rest day in Kylläki as we're ahead of schedule, but it's another 7 days ride to Villa O'Higgins, so we don't hang around for long. At times it feels like we're back in England, but there are shrines on the side of the road that we don't get at home. This one presumably dedicated to an electricity worker. At 1100 metres, the Passo Cerro Castillo is the highest point on the route. The local tourists seem to be fascinated by us and take plenty of photos before moving on. From here, the ride down to Villa Cerro Castillo is unforgettable. And the wine's pretty good too. "10 kilometres further south, we say goodbye to the paved roads and hello to the blood-sucking flies. These blighters attack us on the uphill sections, so we have to learn how to swat and cycle at the same time. But this is a minor inconvenience when it's sunny and you have views like this.
Here we are, another perfect day in paradise. The forecast is good for the next 5 days, and then it's a week of rain, which is fine. But we've got to get to O'Higgins within 5 days by Friday, ideally, if we want to enjoy the scenery, which is, I think you can agree, pretty spectacular. And we've got a big tailwind today. That's always something that cyclists enjoy, especially after yesterday's headwinds.
We're back in lupin territory. This time it's yellows rather than purples, whites and pinks. And the smell of the lupins is just fantastic. I didn't realise lupins smelt so nice, but it must be the lupins because there are so many of them. Some of the disadvantages of this road is quite dusty, especially when trucks like that go past.
It's early in the season and still quiet on the roads, but after only 10 days we're 3/4 of the way to O'Higgins. As the forecast is for rain, we won't be camping tonight, so when we arrive in Puerto Bertrand, we check into Barbie's house. There are some nice murals here, but we decide to give the burgers a miss. The next day's weather is clear, but the wind and the hills make for a tough day's ride to Cochrane. But we soon regather our strength with pastries and cappuccino made in the traditional Italian fashion before heading on.
Today we have ourselves a new companion, this dog. We thought it was the farmer's dog yesterday when we were camping, but he's joined us and well, we've done about 14 or 15 miles, and if he is the farmer's dog he's going to have to turn around and head back again. You can do the maths. And we have been giving him some food, which is probably one of the reasons he's still with us. So he's going considerably more comfortably than we are, I'd suggest. Hopefully he'll decide finally, turn around and go home. Hola!
At Rio Vagabundo we climb over a pass and down to Puerto Yungay, where the ferry waiting room offers us shelter from the rain. From here it's a 1-hour ferry ride and a 100-kilometre sprint to Villa O'Higgins. The road is rough and the nuts and bolts are falling off Tommaso's bike, but the strong tailwind gives us wings, and before you can say, "Mine's a pisco sour," we've arrived. El Mosco is to be our home for the next few days as we wait for the weather to improve, and we do our best not to enjoy ourselves too much. Three days later, we're on our way to the ferry and the official end of the Carretera Austral. While the weather may be better, the ferry crossing is anything but smooth.
Ferry to Argentina is pitching all over the place here. The captain might be slowing down a little bit, but not much.
We tie up our steeds outside the Chilean border post before cycling to the border itself. This is where the fun really starts, as there's no road for the next 7 kilometres.
Here we are, it's just rather narrow, and I've had to take things out the side of my panniers to make the bike narrow enough to get through the gaps, but whether I am successful, I'll find out in a bit. He's given up any attempt to stay dry. Fantastic. It's just started raining and it's quite dangerous, this section, to say the least.
At Lago del Desierto we persuade the Argentinian border police to take us across the lake, and after a long day we finally arrive at El Chalten. After the rain of the previous day, the sun is out to greet us on our 24-kilometre round trip to the laguna at the bottom of the Cerro Fitzroy Massif.
This is, I guess, a Caracara in the Fitzroy National Park. Seems pretty tame to me, and the fact that there's food around might also explain it. It's kind of been standing there for about 5 minutes, looking around from time to time and occasionally pecking things off the ground. Obviously has a taste for bread.
This Andean fox seemed as surprised to see us as we were to see him. But perhaps the most surprising of all was to have such beautiful weather in a place that's notorious for its storms. It's a long way from El Chaltén to Puerto Natales, but I'll be breaking my journey at Perito Moreno and Torres del Paine before heading down to the coast. Fortunately, the road is quite flat, so I'll just have the wind and the rain to worry about. It's a grey day. It's a big lake to cycle around, but otherwise just putting in the miles. The good news is it's a huge tailwind, which means, well, averaging 18 miles an hour, which on this tank is a remarkably quick speed. But the road is smooth, it's tarmac, and not too much traffic on the road, so just really head down and get the day done. It wasn't long before I hit Route 40, which, at 5,000 kilometers, is one of the longest continuous roads in the world. And while not exactly a tropical paradise, Route 40 is the jumping off point for El Calafate, famous for its glaciers and its tractors. It may not be the most beautiful town in Argentina, but it's a good place for some relaxation and to watch a bit of football.
This is what happens when Argentina win a quarter-final match in the World Cup. They go absolutely crazy.
Not to be confused with the Falkland Islands, the Perito Moreno Glacier is among the most popular tourist destinations in southern Argentina. It's one of the few glaciers in the world that's still advancing, at least until it hits the headland opposite, when it splits the lake into two parts. The water levels on one side get higher and higher until the pressure breaks through this natural dam and the process starts once more. After 3 days in El Calafate and 5 hours queuing for money, I'm on the road once more.
Just leaving El Calafate and the wind's blowing nicely. I'm not pedalling, it's barely downhill. I'm doing 25 miles an hour. I was doing 30 a moment ago, wishing I had higher gears, but this is what happens when the wind is directly behind you, blowing nice and hard. Well, hello.
But all good things must come to an end, and we're soon battling strong side winds. Darth Vader warns us about the next 65 kilometres of gravel, but we crack on until we reach a disused police station where we camp for the night. The decorations on the walls suggest that we're not the first cyclists to stay here. Meanwhile outside, Tommaso is catching up with a distant relative. The next day we have our first sight of the Torres del Paine, but the winds are ferocious and it takes us 7 hours to cover the next 30 miles. We cross the border into Chile at Cerro Castillo and head north towards the Torres del Paine. I'll be back with my family in a week's time, but want to take some photos first. On the way to Laguna Azul, I meet people who've seen pumas. And there's plenty of evidence that pumas have been around. The next day I'm packing up my tent and heading for Puerto Natales, although the road name doesn't fill me with confidence. The town proves to be a good place to watch the World Cup final and to see some of the exotic creatures I haven't seen since leaving England, including my family who arrive on the next flight. After a quick tour of the local hostelries and other places of worship, we're off to the Milodon Cave. Standing 3 to 4 meters in height and weighing up to 2 tons, the Milodon was a giant ground sloth whose remains were found here in the late 1840s. Before it became extinct 2,000 years ago, it would have been a formidable creature, although probably not much good in a foot race. Back at Puerto Natales, there's just enough time for some last-minute training before packing our bags for the journey north again. The Torres del Paine is a mountain range surrounded by lakes and glaciers about 110 kilometers north of Puerto Natales. It's one of Chile's most popular tourist destinations and attracts hikers from all around the world. The W Trek marked in blue on the map is very popular, but we're planning on doing the full circuit marked in red, which will take us 9 days. He seems to be picking the bark off to get at the wood, and there, yeah, so it involves like
removing the pebble dash from the house before repointing the bricks. See the glacier behind her, that's rather good. Christmas Day 2022 and Adam is in that boat, heading for a glacier walk. Do a little dance for me. Don't know what he is actually, but it's not one I've seen close up before. It's a nice little fellow. Couldn't see any of this. It was snowing like crazy and the wind was blowing, well, it was still blowing, but suddenly it's clear. It's absolutely fantastic.
The trek is coming to an end now, and all told, we've been pretty lucky with the weather. A bit of rain, a tough day over the John Gardner Pass, but otherwise easy walking, spectacular scenery, and a great opportunity to share stories with other hikers. Although I'm nearing the end of my journey now, I'm expecting conditions to get tougher as I head towards the Magellan Straits and over to Tierra del Fuego. But with luck I'll have time to see the penguins before crossing over to Argentina for the last time. It's tailwinds to start with, and I find a nice bus shelter to camp in halfway to the coast. But the crosswinds the next day are a bit of a beach, and it's Type 3 fun all the way to Punta Arenas, where I make it alive, just. I then discover that due to the wind the boats won't be sailing for a few days, so I check into a hotel that gives me a shite room. This is fine as it gives me time to write my blog and get counselling for my near-death experience. Once the wind has dropped, I'm off to Magdalena to see the penguins. On the way, a pod of southern right whale dolphins comes in to take a closer look. When the early Europeans saw the many bonfires built by the natives, they named this place Tierra del Fuego, or the Land of Fire. And from the early days of settlement, there's always been a sizable Croatian community here. 100 kilometers down the road, there's a slightly smaller community of king penguins, although I'm struggling to get a decent shot of them with a camera on my iPhone, so I have to improvise using a pair of binoculars. I'm 2 days out from Ushuaia now, but I'm going to have to negotiate my way around the Argentinian Navy at Rio Grande before I get there. Rio Grande was their base during the Falklands conflict, and there's a memorial there to those who lost their lives. There are memorials too for those killed on the roads. I passed 10 of these signs within 50 kilometers of leaving Rio Grande. But I'm soon through the worst of it, and I'm in luck as the wind turns to the east for the final stretch. It's been 19 weeks and 3,000 miles after leaving La Paz, but I've finally made it. I'm relieved and overjoyed in equal measure. It's been a long journey and a tough one, but I've done everything I came to do, even if I've just scratched the surface of what this amazing continent has to offer. But it's time to rest now and to enjoy, for a short while, the views from this, the most southerly city in the world.